They said it was the safest bank on Wall Street. In truth, it was sitting on a mountain of lies, carefully wrapped in AAA ratings. In 2006, Halstead Brothers Bank was the golden child of global finance. Its CEO, Martin Keane, was hailed as a visionary, the man who turned debt into gold through something called structured investment vehicles. Investors lined up from London to Tokyo, desperate to buy a piece of what looked like risk-free profit. But behind the glass towers and billion-dollar smiles, there was an invisible enemy, greed disguised as innovation. The numbers didn't add up, but no one dared to question them. Not the auditors, not the regulators, not even the U.S. Treasury. And when one junior analyst noticed the cracks forming, subprime loans piling like tinder under the marble floors, her warnings were buried, her reports rewritten. To the world, Halstead was unshakable. To those inside, it was a ticking time bomb. Because when a bank lies to the world, the lie doesn't just break trust. It breaks the economy. It started with numbers that didn't make sense. By early 2007, a quiet analyst named Lena Ortiz noticed something odd in Halstead Brothers' quarterly reports. Profits soaring even as loan defaults spiked nationwide. Files marked reclassified assets kept multiplying, masking losses as temporary adjustments. When she asked for clarification, her supervisor smiled and said, "Don't overthink the math. Markets always recover." Meanwhile, traders whispered about phantom portfolios, billion-dollar positions that appeared on balance sheets one day and vanished the next. Executives began liquidating their stock options, calling it personal diversification. The PR team worked overtime, issuing confident statements about market resilience, while secretly pushing auditors to sign off on pre-cleared valuations. Even the bank's Christmas party felt wrong that year. Champagne flowing, laughter forced. One director joked, "We're too big to drown." Lena knew better. She'd seen this before. The same arrogance that preceded Enron, the same blind faith that fueled the dot-com crash. Something rotten was festering beneath the marble floors of Halstead Brothers. And this time, when the cracks widened, the entire global system would feel the tremor. The truth didn't leak, it erupted. In March 2008, a cache of internal emails landed on the desk of the Financial Ledger's lead reporter, Ethan Maris. The sender was anonymous, but the subject line was chilling. They knew. The documents showed deliberate fraud. Halstead Brothers had been bundling worthless subprime loans, slicing them into investment-grade securities, and selling them to pension funds and foreign banks. Worse, the risk models had been manually altered to hide default probabilities. The lie wasn't an accident, it was policy. Within days, the story broke. Stockholders panicked. The markets trembled. Employees who had poured their lives into Halstead watched their retirement vanish overnight. Martin Keane called the reports grossly misleading, even as footage surfaced of him cashing out $40 million in shares weeks before the crash. Lena Ortiz, the ignored analyst, was revealed as the whistleblower. She'd risked everything to make the truth public. By the end of the week, the world's most trusted bank was on life support, begging for a government bailout. But the real reckoning hadn't begun yet. Because when money lies, power protects itself, until someone makes it bleed. When the headlines faded and the bailouts began, Lena Ortiz realized something terrible. The system didn't want justice. It wanted silence. Government officials met behind closed doors with Martin Keane and his board. Instead of indictments, there were stabilization packages. Instead of arrests, there were golden parachutes. The media moved on to market recovery stories, and Halstead's PR team rebranded the disaster as a liquidity miscalculation. But Lena couldn't unsee what she'd uncovered. The forged models, the deleted audit trails, the internal memos bragging about selling garbage as gold. She began compiling everything: email chains, meeting logs, trading records. Each file was another nail in the coffin of corporate deceit. Then came her turning point, a quiet meeting with Ethan Maris in a candlelit diner. He told her, "They've been doing this for decades. Mortgage bonds were just the beginning." That night, Lena made a choice. If the markets were built on lies, then she would make the truth unprofitable. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoring what money had erased, accountability. And this time, she wouldn't whisper. She'd roar. Halstead Brothers thought the storm had passed. But in the shadows, Lena Ortiz was quietly preparing her counterstrike. With Ethan Maris's help, she began tracing the hidden money trails. Offshore subsidiaries in the Cayman Islands, shell corporations in Luxembourg, and political donations that conveniently aligned with bailout approvals. Every path led back to the same core circle, Martin Keane and his board of directors. She built an encrypted dossier called the Atlas File, a digital map linking fraudulent transactions to specific executives and complicit regulators. Each document, each timestamp, was irrefutable, but this time, she wouldn't hand it to a newsroom. She would let the world see it all at once. Through back channels, Lena contacted a global network of independent journalists and digital activists. Together, they designed a synchronized leak, one that would drop across 5 continents simultaneously. Meanwhile, Keane stood before cameras, smiling as he assured investors the worst was over. He had no idea the clock was ticking. Justice was no longer a courtroom fantasy. It was a digital countdown. And when it reached 0, the empire built on deceit would burn from within. At precisely 9 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, the world stopped. Every major news outlet, from London to New York, received the same encrypted package, the Atlas File. Inside were thousands of documents proving that Halstead Brothers Bank had orchestrated one of the greatest financial deceptions in modern history. The file showed exactly how they'd inflated mortgage securities, bribed rating agencies, and funneled bailout money into private offshore accounts. Every signature, every email, every timestamp, undeniable. Within hours, the markets went into freefall. Trading floors erupted in chaos. Governments scrambled to contain the panic. And in the middle of it all, Martin Keane appeared before the cameras, his face pale, his empire crumbling. When reporters asked if he had anything to say, he whispered, "We only did what everyone else was doing." That sentence became the epitaph of an era. By nightfall, Halstead Brothers stock was worthless, its CEO under investigation, and its name permanently etched beside Enron and Lehman Brothers in the history of greed. Lena watched from her apartment window as ticker screens turned red, not with fear, but with truth. The world finally saw the lie bleed. By the end of that year, Halstead Brothers Bank was nothing more than a name in bankruptcy court filings, a monument to arrogance carved in balance sheets and broken lives. Martin Keane was led from his penthouse in handcuffs. The same marble floors that once echoed with power now littered with eviction notices. Lena Ortiz refused the media spotlight. She returned to her modest apartment, her inbox flooded with messages from laid-off workers, retirees, and ordinary citizens thanking her for exposing the lie. Yet she knew the victory was bittersweet, because for every Halstead that fell, another waited to rise. The markets had stabilized, but the morality behind them hadn't. Still, history would remember her, not as a whistleblower, but as the woman who dared to ask, what if truth were more valuable than profit? In the end, the empire that lied to the world collapsed under the one thing it could never manipulate: trust. Because numbers can be forged, but consequences? Never. Speech balloon. Do you think greed always gets caught, or does it just change its disguise? Backhand index pointing down. Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more forgotten financial betrayals that shaped our world.